Greetings and salutations. Yes, it's Monday. I don't know how we've managed to do it. Monday is great. Hello, I'm Russ Kane. This is, of course, The Daily Show. Exclusive. Who else would want it? Everybody. To Men's radio station. The start of another week. Hope it's all going to go well for you. You know her. You love her. She is the queen of... She's like the Sir David Attenborough of Northish London when she does her daily walks. She is lovely to meet her.
Good morning.
Good morning. You're shaking your head. I like those little walk things you do. They're great.
I haven't done a daily walk. Been away for the weekend. Haven't done a daily walk.
I know that. I've seen the endless photos. Endless photos. Now,
of the Cotswolds.
Yes. What were you doing there, by the way?
Having a lovely time.
Oh, well,
my very best friend, who I have known my whole life, literally, we've known each other 72 years. But God,
you're only 37. So how does that work?
Yeah, I know.
You're adding it both together.
But she lives down there, and I go down there quite a lot. It's second home.
It's nice there. Could you live there? It's an interesting question. Could you live there?
Very interestingly, the little village in which she lives, because I go down so often, I know. I'm not going to swear yet.
But you can. I love it. I love it when you swear because you're so potty mouth.
When I talk dirty, you love it.
Great. Bloody marvelous.
Everybody down there knows me by name because I go down. Morning, Robert. I go down so regularly.
Well, that's what they say to you in the street. Morning, Robert. You've got something to tell. Are you gender fluid suddenly, or what?
Let's not go there. We will argue.
Will we? Oh no, will we?
Anyway, I did consider fairly recently there was a place for sale down there which I could have afforded to purchase, and I did consider moving away from London.
Good move.
And then I thought, hang on a minute, no freedom pass, no theatre.
Right. And I can't rock up to the Bridge Theatre and have a drink with you when you've been to see a show.
No, but you could rock up for the weekend. I know.
You know him. Well, he's arrived, ladies and Neil. An interesting way, nonetheless, to looking at his face, start the week.
With God as my witness, I pressed the link and I couldn't get in. It was like nobody was there, so I had to turn it off, pressed it again, and then you were there.
But it's so strange that the very competent Leslye Demeser was perfectly able to access the link. It's so weird.
Well, that's just what Leslie's got that I haven't.
I can tell you, how long have you got?
Well, big up yourself, Leslye. Big up your bad self.
Now, listen, I need to apologise to Neil Long. Although it would spoil the surprise. We had an arrangement today, and I will tell you why I decided to postpone it. And it was just on Friday. Are you ready for this tale? You ready for this tale? By the way,
yes.
Do you prefer this setup or do you prefer that setup?
I think I like that one better.
What, this one or the first one?
No, this one.
You prefer this one? All right,
yes.
We'll do this one. Whatever. I don't care.
As long as I know that you believe me, because I wasn't late. I obviously was here. I clicked the link and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Neil, I believe you.
Thank you, Leslye.
Stop
it sounds
crawling.
Like I'm making
stop crawling, Leslye, for God's sake. Stop crawling. It's going to get you nowhere. I mean, you're never going to go to New Malden, face it. You're never
I've been to New Malden.
Well, don't boast.
You poor misguided woman.
My brother used to live there.
It was closed. Sorry?
Well, yeah. My brother used to live there. Russ, you can see your T-shirt. That's lovely, dear.
What part did he live in? The rough bit, the middle bit, or the posh bit?
Do you know what?
All of them.
It was very suburban. That's all I know.
Probably the middle bit.
Honestly, sweetheart, I couldn't tell you where.
Is there any difference?
I can't remember.
Is there any difference between
there's a place called Coombe, which is a very posh bit of New Malden, and Jimmy
where the golf course is, you mean?
Where the golf courses are.
Yeah, no, they weren't there.
I'd see, you in the middle bit or the rough bit then. I used to see Jimmy Tarbuck driving around in his car. The number plate was COM1C.
To remind him what he actually once used to be.
Ouch.
Don't get Russ started on Jimmy Tarbuck.
Don't. I'll tell you after the show. I liked him when he was young. He was called himself the fifth Beatle, which I thought was a little bit little bit presumptuous, but anyway, that's just me. I'll tell you something that you didn't know. Here's a great fact. Lloyd Beanie, I don't know how this job came about. Lloyd Beanie's first job was washing Jimmy Tarbuck's hair before he did Saturday night TV or Sunday night TV. Yeah.
Neil's
I'm not
disappeared.
joking. Neil's gone. We're going to take him off for a second. There we go. Neil's internet's clearly packed up. That's what happens when you live in New Malden.
No, it's what happens sometimes in Stanmore. You know that.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It is. Anyway, I'm going to tell you my story of why I cancelled my arrangement. On Friday, I was hugely looking forward to it. I was going over to my good pal, Mr. Ray Gelato. Oh, he's back. Here he is. He's back. Just like Radio 4, isn't it? I was going on Friday to see Mr. And Mrs. Gelato and going to their home, their lovely home, for dinner. And I was hugely looking forward to it. It had been a very long, quite arduous week. And I thought, what's nicer than on a Friday to chill out and have dinner? And Ray is a fantastic cook. So I got into my car and set the sat nav. Now, he lives in London. He lives in Ealing, right? It's a journey I've done many times. And I look at my sat nav and it says 1 hour, 47 minutes to get there. I'm thinking, what? 1 hour, 47? So I set off. I thought, must be an error. So I changed sat nav systems and I go from Google to Waze and then Waze to Google and all the rest of it. And I set off. After 1.5 hours, I had reached Regent Street, the top end. That's as far as I got. So I phone up Raimondo and I said, Ray, according to the sat nav, it's going to be another hour until I get to you. I set off at 6 o'clock. It's now 7:30. I'm not going to get to you for dinner till 8:30. He said, oh, don't worry. You just go home. Don't worry. I said, well, what about all the food? He cooked he's a fabulous cook. He said, don't worry. I can put it in Tupperware. I can take it round to my folks and then the kids and I can eat it. It'll all be fine. So I turned round and I set off home. The whole trip took me 3.5 hours.
Wow.
3.5 hours of going nowhere because it was a train strike, but it was also a tube walkout. Muggins here didn't realize it was a tube walkout. And so what I was concerned about, I was going to see Neil today, which I've been hugely looking forward to. And I was been planned for weeks. And I thought, you know what? The trains would be in the wrong position. There'll be another excuse why everything's completely messed up. I cleaned that one up. And I thought, no, I'm not prepared to sit in the car for another, 27 hours to try and do a show. And then that's the rest of the day gone. So that was Friday. But the trouble was, when I got back, I was in such a rage and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to dispel, and I'm being really open and honest, and disperse this rage. I was just one. If I didn't have a broken hand, I would have started punching a wall, but it's absolutely hopeless. So I didn't know what to do. It was horrendous. I couldn't calm down for so long. I thought, what a waste of time.
A bit of EFT tapping would have sorted that out.
Would it? Oh, well.
Yeah. Can I just make an observation?
Please.
Much as I love your T-shirt, which says "I may be wrong, but it's highly unlikely."
Yeah.
If you get a certain distance to the microphone, it blocks part of it out, and it reads "I'm mong."
What does that mean?
Don't go there.
I don't even know what that means.
Debbie McGee's parents lived in New Malden Way. Went to a party there once where Paul Daniels rocked up in his car, the one with the MAG1C number
Isn't that
plate.
great?
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, Jimmy Tarbuck had COM1C.
He did. And Paul, excuse him. Thank you very much for your lovely, lovely message. We're all going to go on Paul's magic bus, a psychedelic bus, and have a tour.
Magic bus.
That's what we're going to do. Actually, could we do an OB? Got to ask your producer, Ken. If we could do an OB from Paul's bus, that would be fantastic. You'd love it, Leslye.
We've got the technology.
favourite
We got my producer, Mr. E. He could link up 4 universes at once and broadcast it through a polar bear. And I'm not kidding.
Well, that's just mad.
I'm not.
What is he, Harry Potter or something?
Pretty much.
Liz Saul, I can believe it. In the hours of traffic I've been sitting in over the last few days, it is absolutely shocking. Now, the question I have for you, we don't have a guest today.
I just hang on. I'm going to. No, shush. I'm going to come in here. I got to the Cotswolds in an hour and a half, and I got back in an hour and a half. So it's not all bad. I just wanted to share that with you. London is bad,
all
but
about
if you're
you,
not
isn't it?
in London and go around the
you.
Of course,
All
bloody hell,
about
with you two, it's a bit difficult to get a word in.
Yep, Leslye, you talk about anything. Neil, don't say anything. I'm not going to say anything. We're going to have radio silence.
Okay,
and Leslye Demeter will speak.
I've got two things. Okay, I've got two things. One that I was thinking about this morning, which is why do we make our beds? In the morning, I get up, I turn the duvet, or at the moment, no duvet, just the duvet cover. I turn it back, air the bed for at least maybe a couple of hours, windows open, blah, blah. And then I go in and I remake the bed and put the cushion. Why do we do that? I've been talking to friends. Why do we do it when all we do is go back in there in the evening, lift up the covers, get back in? I don't remake the bed. Yes, you may
discipline.
Speak.
Thank you. Discipline. There is a wonderful speech given by one of the most senior admirals in the American Navy. And he said, if you want to start your day correctly and have the right mental attitude, it all starts with making your bed. You can find it on YouTube. Starts with making the bed because it shows discipline and it shows that you care and that you have standards. That's the answer to your question.
Thank you. I've always thought of discipline as something other, but we won't. My second thing, while I'm on a roll, is this weekend, I had a letter from John Lewis, the John Lewis Partnership, about my partnership credit card. And it told me that the letter, it came with a little leaflet which says, your partnership card is closing. So I thought, why? Why is my partnership closing? I don't understand it. I've got a decent credit rating. I read through the whole thing. They're changing providers, but it doesn't tell you anything about them replacing your card. So I went online, looked it all up, and they said, well, to get a new card for this new provider, you have to have a certain number. And John Lewis will write to you and give you this specific reference number. So I thought, well, they haven't bloody written to me, and I've had a card for X number of years. So I phoned them, and I spoke to a very nice bloke. I spoke to Michael this morning, and he said, well, you should get a letter within the next week to 10 days. I was very upset because I thought, do they want to get rid of me? That's shut up for a while.
I would say it's a bit of lack of communication on their part. I don't think they would want to get rid of you. That's not generally considered great customer service, is it?
It's what it is.
No, I agree with you, Neil.
Even with my bank, they decided to go all electronic and all very clever and very, very smart digital and all the rest of it. It's been a nightmare, an absolute a cluster duck, I would say. And so much so that the CEO had to write to every member of the bank apologizing and offering some sort of gift thing. And I'm like, when you're undertaking something which is huge and radical, it's not easy. But you've got to think it right the way through. Otherwise, you're going to have them. It was a hell of a mess. And what upset me, not really upset me that much, but if it's not broke, don't tamper with it. The system was absolutely fine. I don't understand this desperation to get everything digital, and you can't talk to anybody. That drives me nuts. And they really had egg on their face.
I've got a wise it, okay, to return your wise it, lovely Demeter. Why is it that people do the cleaning before a cleaning lady comes around? I've known people that have a cleaning lady, a cleaning person, they go, I've just got to clean up. And isn't that a bit like eating before you go to a restaurant? Help me understand that. I've never understood that.
I've talked to people about this. I think it's a question of you don't want people to think you're sluttish or this or that. Although I know a lot of people who don't.
You mean slovenly?
No, she means sluttish. She knows what she means.
slovenly. Thank you, Neil.
Yeah, but maybe I want people
stand
to think that
corrected.
about me because I'm an old media tart. Ah.
No, you are right, Neil. You are right. But you don't, I think
wrong,
it's
but it's
about
highly
what other
unlikely.
people think.
Which ties very nicely into a mental health theme. Why do we care so much about what other people think?
Yeah,
Why is so much of our
absolutely.
self-worth not self-worth, it's other worth? Have you heard of the 20-40-60 rule? Have you heard of this one? This is a good one.
Yes.
At 20, you've heard of this?
Yes,
At 20, you worry what everyone thinks of you. At 40, you couldn't give a toss. And at 60, you realize they weren't thinking about you in the first place because they were so obsessed with themselves. And if people could learn that earlier, I think there'd be a lot less comparison and probably more happiness in the world.
It is so important. It's so easy to deal with this on Men's Radio Station in like 30 seconds, and it sounds very glib, but it's so difficult to then put into your life as a working practice. Worrying about what everybody else thinks is a complete and utter waste of time. It really, really is. As long as you're not hurting anybody. My dad, he was a man of very few words. Most of them get out of here. But he said, as long as you're a good person, that's it. And that's really been my guiding. I've done my best.
Yeah.
Not always succeeded. I'm not pretending that I have. But to go through life desperate about so-and-so, we can't do that because so-and-so, I don't care. It's irrelevant because it's not important. It's important what your kids think. That's important. It's important that your kids respect you and at least understand that you've tried to do a good job. But outside of that, who the hell cares? What's the point?
Did you know that if you were to be able to drive your car at 60 miles an hour for straight upwards, you'd be in outer space within an hour?
What does that got to do with
nothing?
I'm not quite sure. That can't be
nothing.
True.
I'm just giving you some random facts. Snails can have up to 12,000 teeth. Did you know this?
Yeah. No.
We could do a series of shows to be serious on
snails
self-worth.
Have teeth.
Yes, they do. Between 1,000 and 12,000.
Well, they've got a little house on their back, which is handy because they never have
any.
They
keep spare teeth.
Of course they do. It was stupid of me not to. Here we are. Kerry Stoneman says this. Neil, you used to clean up before your cleaning lady turned up. You had to hide your inflatables.
Now, for the benefit of those that have just tuned in, the reason why I had inflatables started as a joke through lockdown. Very briefly, before I.
No, it didn't.
Before they say things on Mumsnet about me. My radio wife, Nikki, made a joke about my love life on air on another radio station I did the breakfast show on. And she said I needed something inflatable with a puncture repair kit. A listener thought it was funny and sent said thing in, replete with puncture repair kit. I put it in the drawer upstairs and forgot about it until lockdown, when I did all the lockdown parties on there. And put it in the background for a joke. And then I ended up with a family of about 8 because people would use their hourly walk to leave them on my doorstep in leafy suburbia. And that's why I had a family. I often thought the police would think I was doing an illegal party here, which I wasn't. I was all alone broadcasting legally, I might add. But if they'd have bust in, they'd have found a lone DJ with a family of 8 inflatable dolls.
Could they join the show one day?
Could what?
You are
dolls?
Disgusting. You are disgusting.
Yes,
they were part of the show.
No, this
Leslye,
show.
There's video footage that I'm really embarrassed about, but
no,
let's just
not
leave
video.
That there.
Ooh.
You are asking.
It was lockdown. Had to find something to do.
Yeah, and you certainly did. And you were spoilt for choice with a family of 8. Let's not kid ourselves.
One of which was a sheep called Elma.
Ooh, sheep. Sheep came into my visit back to my old university last week, the week before last.
Oh, really?
Sheep. Yeah. The boys took a sheep upstairs one night and put it in someone's bedroom. It's a long story.
What, a real sheep?
But pardon?
A real sheep?
A real sheep. A real
oh my God.
Sheep, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, the university campus had a farm on it as well. It was a fabulous campus. The grounds had been landscaped by Capability Brown, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, yes, a sheep landed up in somebody's bedroom. I am not able, even though this isn't the BBC, I'm really not able to go into detail on radio. But it was funny.
You tease us with your salacious tale.
Yes.
Well,
Now, I have a question for the both of you, and
Please.
this is changing the mood. But what the heck? We're nothing if not agile. And I'd love everybody to join in on this. All right, it's a two-part question. Number one, how stressed is everyone feeling about the incredible rising cost of living? How stressed are you feeling? And do you think you're going to be able to get through this? And number two, are you as angry as I am that the constant theme is that everything that is happening is our fault? We have to ration water. We have to ration electricity. We have to do this. We have to do that. Some of this is your job. You're in charge of the water. We're not in charge of leaks. We don't put raw sewage into rivers and into coastlines. We don't do any of this.
Story over the weekend.
And yet all of this, and I was speaking about this morning, I mentioned this on Talk TV this morning at 3:00 with Petri Hoskin, is why is everything thrown back at us and no culpability and no responsibility by the people who are making an absolute fortune? These CEOs, I'm not talking about the bloke with a wrench in his hand, I'm talking about the CEOs, many of whom have two jobs and sit on other boards for 115,000 a year to attend maybe a handful of meetings. And it makes me very angry. So let's deal with that. Why is it always our fault? Leslye Demise.
well, everybody looks for a scapegoat, don't they? Nobody wants to be the person who is where the buck stops. They just don't. I feel very strongly, for instance, with the water companies, the fact that it was privatized, put it into hands of individuals that could do as they wished. Had it been a public company, I don't know what would have happened under this government, under any government. I feel I know enough about it to give a proper opinion. I know that, for instance, where I live, we don't have a hosepipe ban because we're not Thames Water. But there is a leak on the main road that goes past my house. There's a leak that's been there for over a year. But the water company have dug up so many bits trying to find this bloody leak. They can't find where it's coming from. I'm wondering, well, there's lots of natural springs that come down the hill. I don't know. I don't know what to say, Russ. I'll shut up now.
More incisive comments coming later. Neil, this is the thing, but it's a theme that everything somehow is our fault. And it's not.
I think we've got a society where people are so quick to jump on you for the slightest mistake or error. And there's some people that can say things in utter innocence and it gets taken deliberately or not out of context and then turned back on them. I could give several examples. So everyone's a bit kind of, scared because we're also very litigious, I would say. And for me, it's separating blame and responsibility. Blame is disempowering, responsibility is not. And but responsibility doesn't mean or shouldn't mean taking a fall. If someone's responsible for something, back to what you said, Russ, culpability, who to blame, whose fault it is, it's endemic in our whole culture. Where it should be is just a simple, that's my call, that's my responsibility, deal with it. Other than this wretched blaming, this rampant viral, if you like, blaming that goes on. Because nothing ever gets sorted.
But I think you're conflating. I think you're conflating two things here. It's an important point. One is we're living in a bully culture, bullying on social media. Well, I mean, what has happened to Joanne Harris, who was the author Joanne Harris, whom you know, Chocolat. She was a guest on the show. She and I tweet most days.
Yeah, she
and
was wonderful.
They've twisted what she said with regard to J.K. Rowling. And this woman, who is recovering from cancer, let me just point that out, as if she hasn't got enough going on in her life. She's just finished chemo. And the trolling that she had last week was, of course, absolutely shocking, and she dealt with it, superbly. But
Because
it's blown into
clearly
this
she-
huge thing.
Clearly,
That's
she didn't
issue
mean
one.
anything like that.
No,
There was
this is issue number one. This awful trolling, but not the same thing is the way that the major corporations will not take responsibility. This whole thing is we have to do everything. And my question is, well, what are you doing? What exactly are you doing? Stop blaming us for stuff which emanates from you. We're not in charge of the leaks. You have, I don't mean Welsh, you have to sort that out. It's not our job. I don't think everybody is completely flagrant with their use of water. They make out, that we're having a bath, running a bath, dipping a teaspoon in it and emptying the bath. People don't behave like that. They're not that stupid. It's just painting everybody like we're all idiots. And somebody this morning put a really interesting post on Twitter, and it's never been addressed. And I think you're going to think about it for the first time here right now. If they bring in power cuts this winter, if they do, and you've got an electric car, what's the deal? What's the deal if you've got an electric car and they bring in power cuts? Because that is how they are corralling you. They're corralling you. That's what they're doing. See, I don't often agree with Katie Hopkins. She's very extreme. I know Katie Hopkins, we did an interview with her, and she's in real life quite different from the panto villain that she says. But, the point she made was, do you not see what they're doing? How by rationing everything, they're controlling you. And by controlling you, it means you really can't go that far from your home.
But what's the end game here?
Control, power.
But there won't be power cuts all day, every day. And I remember, I'm old enough, the 3-day week. And I remember power cuts before. And I know what you're saying about electric cars, but people will charge their cars up. Interestingly, talking to somebody yesterday who has a car that will do over 300, electric car that will do over 300 miles.
Until you get on the motorway, Leslye, until you get on the motorway, it's all a faff. It's all a con. It's a huge con.
Well, no, he had actually come on a motorway from Leeds, but that's neither here nor there. He charged it. He recharged it for 20 minutes halfway down. But he said at the service station that he stopped at, there were 2 other people using the charging points. So he had to go on to the next one. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Here's a point from Liz Saul. I'm sorry, I didn't want to, because it blocks out Neil. Oh, that's so much better. Would you like to read? Oh, no, I'll read. I know, because the principal. I'm a bit worried as I'm trying to move house in the coming months. People I speak to can't understand how utility companies, for example, make so much profit, but are still raising prices for energy. Darn right. How can that be? How can that be? And just while we're punching Neil, Karen Shortland, as one of the LDF group, I absolutely know what is the LDF? I don't know.
Lockdown Family. It sounds like an extreme right-wing organisation,
but it's not. Like some bunch of fascists living in South.
It does.
Rest assured, we have plenty of photos of the inflatable family, and even Robert Van Buren even had some of the photos iced on top of a cake for Neil during lockdown 2. Oh my God. Neil, could you read this?
I think a pleasure. It'd be a good excuse to move on. The water companies made the same comments in 1975, 1976, blaming us for using water. They said it would cost too much to make new reservoirs in order to protect the water supply, because that would affect the shareholders. And there it is.
It's all about the share. They don't care.
And there's the rub. And there's the rub.
Leslie's point is 100% true. They don't give a toss about the consumers, i.e., everybody listening and watching this show. They don't care about you. They only have a responsibility and care about the share price and the shareholders and the dividends. That's it. And it should be that the consumers, us who are paying the bills, should be their first concern. We're their last concern.
Can I ask a question? Because this is something I've been perplexed by, and it challenges what I thought was intellectual ability, and that is, why is the government allowing or encourage, or why have they stopped the capping of electricity prices? Why don't they just say, this is bloody ridiculous, we're going to cap the price? I don't understand why they're not. Well, where's anything happening? Surely the government are in a position to say, we've got to put a cap on electricity prices now.
Well, that's what they've done in Europe. If you look at the European situation or the global situation, let's keep it to Europe because it's nice and local. That's what they've done, and it makes sense. And of course, the other thing is, and this, I'm actually not xenophobic. If you know me, you know I'm actually not. But most of our utility companies are owned by foreign companies. So we might as well be Nigeria, Botswana. They don't care. We care because we go, oh, we're English. It's the United Kingdom, blah, blah, blah. But we're owned by a company. We're just a little blip on their sheet of profit and loss. They don't care about us. Of course they don't. We're not. They don't live here.
Most of the rail companies are owned by European companies. And in fact, the money they get from all our different rail companies funds their train travel sufficiently that they can have really low-cost train travel. They benefit from the profits our companies make. I saw something on Facebook about it at the weekend, and a friend who works in railways said to me, this has been going on for a long time. It's absolutely true.
Some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, why has this show suddenly got so political? It's not about politics. To me, this is mental health. And I'll tell you why. And I'm not trying to shoehorn it. I'm not trying to crowbar it in. I'm genuinely not. I'd be honest and just say, look, I want to talk about this today. Because it makes us so angry. It makes us so anxious. I'm anxious about the whole thing. Very anxious. And it makes us feel powerless. And all of these things go, and they don't go away. It's this endless assault. And I think it affects us badly in terms of our mental state. I know Neil's chomping at the bit here.
Can you tell it's my body language? I think we could, my producer Ken came up with this idea because Ken helped me in this house to really economize it, and it's kept my fuel bills very, very low. And I'm thinking we could offer maybe some solutions, just maybe a couple of minutes on each segment of the show. For example, he replaced all my bulbs, which were 50 watts, with 5-watt LED bulbs, just as bright, use a lot less electricity. Just little practical things that we can do, because we can either get stuck in worry or we can actually take some practical action. Again, it's that, am I in charge here or not of myself? Is this responsibility thing? We can do what we can do, which is a lot better than sitting there ruminating and worrying, right?
Not much we can do about water. I agree with that.
I mean, I've been investigating the conservatory having the roof replaced before the winter by a proper roof so that I'm not losing all the heat, because I'm worried about how much it's all going to cost me, not in the short term, but in the long term. Shall I bang on about living on a pension? Listen, I'm not on my uppers by any means, but it does concern me. So I thought, I've got to investigate insulating the roof, doing this, doing that, just so that I can live comfortably. And there are people who cannot get anywhere near living comfortably. The stress for them, and the stress turns into mental illness, and it's awful. The situation is dire, and nobody is doing anything.
And the mental health services are very, very stressed, and it's already proven by science that we don't make good decisions when we're in that stress, fight or flight mode. It's one or the other. It's either in flow, in creativity, which is mentally healthy, or in stress. The stress response was meant to be used for really short bursts, like being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Put it in modern day context, I don't know, being chased by a mugger. But now that that adrenaline, that cortisol is running in people's bodies, literally, at least at a low level.
Mine is on at the whole. Neil, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm sorry, I'll let you continue. But
And it's killing us.
mine is switched on
Dangerous.
the entire time. I'm exhausted. I'm being absolutely open and
The
honest.
reason why I know this, I've read a
exhausted.
book. We should do some more stuff on this. It's a brilliant. I wonder if we could get her as a guest. Actually, someone's written a fantastic book on burnout, which is really, really common. And this is why. It's because we're overloading this part of ourselves that was meant to be used really just for short bursts. Short bursts, not 24/7, 365. It's dangerous. And yes, it does destroy mental health. And we should be talking about it, and we should be offering solutions, in my opinion, because this knowledge ain't so common. You know,
Isn't it
it's only
tragic?
recently that the NHS even recognised burnout.
Isn't
It's a
it
relatively new term.
Tragic. It's tragic.
It's a relatively
But it
young term.
takes a radio station like this to talk about it and highlight it and try and give a little bit of, at least open up the subject and then possibly give some solutions, or at least signpost where they can get up. My question,
I'd be happy to share, because I can do a précis of the book and offer some bits and bobs if that'd be helpful.
Let's get that in the schedule.
You give me the airtime, man, I'll do it.
Okay, you got it. Here's another question, because I want to know who the hell's in charge at the moment. Who's in charge? Now, I know that Parliament is in summer recess, which only lasts about 10 years, and Boris is on. He's entitled to have a holiday. What the hell? I don't care. He's on holiday, fine. But who's actually running anything? And I suppose the answer is the civil servants, who we never see, who are not accountable, who we don't know who the hell they are, and they're actually running everything. But do you not feel that it feels to me like a runaway train? It actually feels like a runaway train to me, that no one is in control of the brakes and saying, this is what we've got to do. Because all of the water, the cost of living. I saw some photos. They were not photoshopped. It was not a joke. We talked a few weeks ago that Lurpak butter, the large sort of family size, which is now £10, is security code. So you got to get the security thing taken off when you buy it in a supermarket. In Liverpool, not a joke. This is not a joke. The normal sized little butters, which are like £3.10 or something, they're also now security tagged. What the hell's going on here? What's going on? We're becoming literally a third world nation, or we're slipping into it. And everybody's just smiling and carrying on. You know, if there's something good on the telly, that takes away from the fact of just what is being done here, how they've sold the family silver. And Gordon Brown did this. I'm not just picking on one particular political party. Gordon Brown sold all the family silver.
I think though, but it ties into burnout again, doesn't it, Russ? Because if people suddenly recognise all these problems, and they're very real in the world, then suddenly it seems incredibly overwhelming. Got to do something about it all at once, now and perfectly. And again, it's chunking it down into manageable things that you can do, and ideally in line with things that interest you, which you enjoy anyway. People do have a lot of wonderful skills. I know many people with many transferable skills, you do too, who could make a very good living just doing practical things for other people. You know, little hacks on how to make your house more economical, just things like that. But keep it solution focused, so at least people feel they've got some sort of agency, and that would take away the feeling of powerlessness and victimhood.
It's so interesting. You've used the word, and they never use it. But I don't like the word victim because it's overused. But I do feel
I don't like it, but it is how a lot of people feel. They feel at effect.
I'm agreeing with you.
They feel at effect of circumstances rather than at cause and of agency in their own life.
Can you say that again? Explain that again.
People feel at effect of circumstances, in other words, a victim, right? Or they feel empowered. You can either be a creator of your own life or a victim of it. It's one or the other. And people flip between the two quite a lot.
Leslye, do you feel like you're like in a fast flowing river? And this is how it's in my head. You're in this like fast flowing river and you're paddling like crazy, but you're not really in control. That's how I feel.
I don't think, I mean, first of all, Russ, I don't feel that I suffer, if that's the right word, from the same anxiety levels as you do. I'm I just don't. And it could be because I have nobody dependent on me, whereas you do. Even though the boys are grown up, the twins are grown up, and your other two are, adults, and you're a grandfather and all that, I don't have any of those people dependent on me. So it does make a big difference. What I have been thinking a lot about recently is, I was in communication with somebody in the House of Lords, as is my wont, the other day. He's very vociferous about what's happening right now, and I'd said that I felt that the people who are more adversely affected than the majority of the population, if you like, I'm not going to say the working class, but people who's haven't got necessarily the education levels to get into jobs where they could keep their heads above water, blah, blah. Although that's not everyone, because there's plenty of nurses who can't afford to pay their mortgages and so on, because they're so poorly paid. And indeed, I'm going to get on the case about the junior barristers who earn £12,000 a year for the first 3 years of their careers, which is no money at all. But the majority of people who are at the moment below the poverty line, I think, feel so downtrodden that they feel worthless, and therefore, it's not that they want to be apathetic, but they are, because they feel, what's the point? Nobody will listen to me anyway. There's nothing I can do. And that, to me, is the terrifying bit. This whole thing, a succession of issues has disempowered people, so that they think there is nothing, there is nowhere to go, no way up, no way out of the morass. And that really worries me. I think we're going to see, sadly, far more use of food banks, and God knows we shouldn't even have to have them in this country. In real terms, we're not a third world country, but, things are behaving like it. People are just exhausted from fighting and getting nowhere, swimming upstream, if you like, and they feel hopeless. And to feel hopeless must be the worst feeling in the world. I feel very blessed, very lucky that I'm not in that position. I thank my parents for teaching me how to save a bit, and put money away for a rainy day, all that stuff. And
Well, I would have if I could have. I would have if I could have, but I didn't. This
Yes.
is from Kerry Stoneman. I understand you, Russ. Your anxiety is high all day. Yep. And you feel exhausted. Yep. But then you can't sleep properly to recharge your batteries. No, I can't.
Which is exactly what the book on burnout says. It's a really, really good book. I think we should, with your permission, Russ, maybe feature bits on this show.
Well, of course, let's do that. Let's do that, because and the worst thing in life. Let's see if we can try. The worst thing in life, and Leslye has brought up this one word, is to lose hope. Without hope, life is meaningless, absolutely meaningless. If you don't have hope that things will be okay, or you'll be well, or whatever, without hope, and it was the last thing to be pulled out of Pandora's box, if you recall, that was the last thing. Without hope, life is very dark. And I think that's where we're all being pushed and shoved, and they call it kettling in the police, don't they? When there's a riot. And I think that's what they're doing with all of us. We're being kettled so that we don't have hope.
We need to promote a message of hope, I suppose. And I don't mean sort of airy fairy, but real kind of practical things that people can do, and what people can do to feel that they're empowered, to feel that they're contributing, and to feel, possibly most importantly, that they do have some agency. Because I've felt that way before, and the fear of it is, and then I got better, and then I started to feel, an awful lot better. But my fear was going back there. And when you're there, we've discussed this before, it feels like you can never get out. There are solutions. It's like depression, but you can't see it. You can't see the wood for the trees. There are solutions. There are always solutions. There's new things coming to the world. There's new ideas coming in. There's new people doing amazing things in the world, bringing in new ideas, new teachings, all sorts of things. But when you're in that low place, you can't see them. They could be right in front of your face and you couldn't see it. You have to be able to
kind of... It won't be quick enough. It won't be fast enough. It won't be fast enough. The train is hurtling down the track towards the buffers, and the brakes need to be going on right now. It's going to be too late. It's going to be too late for a lot of people. A hell of a lot of it. You know, when America sneezes, Britain catches a cold. I don't know when the last time you guys were in America. When you see tent cities, you see the situation over there. And whereas it used to be, you'd say, not rightly, but, you know, let's be honest, you'd say, oh, they're all alcoholics or they're all drug addicts. No, not at all. They have people who've fallen through the cracks because America has really no social services whatsoever. They pretend they do. They don't. As my late friend Francis used to say, you're one paycheck away from the street. And a lot of those people there used to be middle class, which the Americans prided themselves on. These tent cities are gigantic and growing exponentially. And we don't want to see that here. We don't. We really, really don't want that happening here.
Do you, of course, I'm sure you will both remember the poll tax riots.
Yeah.
When people just said, enough, we've had enough, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not purporting that people riot in the same way again. Well, they're not allowed to anymore anyway. You can't demonstrate the way you used to. All that's been controlled as well. But I just, a friend of mine said she wonders when we'll be at civil war about all this, you know, about the cost of utilities, about the cost of everything. And I maintain because people are so exhausted by it, it won't happen. But it's possible.
But
on
that's
the other hand,
what they bank on, Leslye. This is what people bank. If you're trying to control people, I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat. I'm not.
No, I know.
But if you want to control people, the first thing, you make them exhausted. And when they're exhausted, they're malleable because they're so tired of everything. You know, the COVID thing knocked everybody sideways. And Phil Dave, who I ran into this morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, unbelievably. All right. Phil Dave was the first person on Men's Radio to say, I can assure you the side effects of the pandemic will be much worse than the illness itself. And now the facts are coming through. No, I'm not blaming the government, because if the three of us had been in charge, we would have said, well, I don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have known. You know, it's like it's life, Jim, but not as we know it. They're going into uncharted territory. I get that. But I didn't do it. I didn't see it for a few weeks. And then I said, Phil, and I said, you're absolutely right. I was wrong and you were right. That the side effects for our mental health has been infinitely worse, apart from the people who died, obviously. But, you know, trying to catch up the number of people who are not getting cancer treatment, not the number of people not getting heart treatments. And how long is it going to be an excuse? It's been the most extraordinary get out of jail free card ever. Can't do this because of COVID. Now we can't do this because of Putin. What's it going to be next week?
Yeah.
You can they just label it, hang it on a hook. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of it. It's your job. Sort it out. Stop just using excuses. Stop it. That's what I think. Oh, I've never seen you. I've never seen you so quiet. Never seen you.
In a sense, there is already civil unrest. Look at the ongoing strikes in different industries.
That's not civil unrest.
I was going to say.
That's not civil unrest, Liz. That's greed in most cases. That's absolute naked greed.
Or civil unrest in the sense of people who are striking.
You're going to tell me that driving a tube train is like being a nurse? Hardly. It's ridiculous.
But then, Russ, seriously, I mean, different groups striking, or all striking about money, but some of them it isn't greed. I just said about the barristers. A junior barrister earns $12,000 a year. That's it, for at least 3 years after, all those years at university. Oh, pay back your loan. All right, when you earn enough, blah, 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 if ever. But my sister, my half sister, is a midwife. I know what she was earning when she was.
Do you call her?
I beg your pardon?
Do you call her?
What do you mean, do I call her? Oh,
Moving
shush.
on.
Or
Stop
midwife.
it. I'm so sorry. Oh, God,
Moving on.
yawn.
Moving on. Moving on.
Sometimes, because she doesn't call me, meow. Anyway, when when she was working full-time as a midwife, her salary was pathetic. She has doing other things, other medical things now to supplement the income because she's a single parent, blah, blah, blah. We can't call it all greed when people go on strike. We really can't. But
The barristers, you're right about the barristers. This has been brewing because I've got friends who are barristers and other friends in the legal community, and this has been brewing. We've been talking about this around at least 18 months.
Yeah.
This is not something sudden. And they're saying this has got to change because they're earning peanuts. We see, the ritzy QCs who are making £1,000 an hour, £750 an hour. I get that. That's not the majority of the barristers. That's like saying I sing in a pub. Oh, are you Ed Sheeran? I mean, that's the logic behind that. It's ridiculous. Okay. So that is, and by the way, that is going to grind the criminal justice system to if you just think, I don't really give a shit. Barristers, who cares? Doesn't affect me. I don't need them. Wait until there's a criminal trial, of which the backlog is already enormous. This is going to completely stop it. They can't progress. How's that going to work? How's that going to work?
Oh, absolutely. And if nurses not allowed to go on strike, that nobody thinks about the fact that when nurses train, they used to get a bursary because when they're training, they spend a percentage of time in lectures, but the majority of time is spent on wards in the hospitals learning to do the job whilst doing the job. Now, they used to get a bursary, which enabled them to live while they were doing it. That's all been cut. So,
that is because Kimmy Lashmar, you see, this is the point. Any nice news? No, I don't know. You tell me, Kimmy. You tell me any nice news in this crazy world. This is why we're stressed.
I'm here.
I'm going to read that. Maybe you misread that. It said any nice news.
Not funny.
Okay, well, I'll be the judge of that. The thing is, what is that fabulous noise? Are you practicing the recorder?
It's someone doing something with some sort of circular saw over the back of the house. I'm sorry.
Do you know what about the nurses though, Leslye? They rely on the fact that people who go into nursing are firstly angels, and secondly it's their vocation. It's their vocation. Whereas a train driver, it's not a vocation; it's a job. It's a job.
No, I agree. You have to be of a certain type of person. And yes, Ken Evans has just written and said teachers have seen pay cut by 8% since 2007. And I know when I was teaching full time, people used to say to me, oh, yes, but you get those long holidays. I was lucky if I had a week to myself because of all the preparation and the marking and blah, blah, blah.
That was a bit of a misnomer, wasn't it? The teachers get 8 weeks.
Absolutely. And now,
anyway, here's nice news. Here is nice news. And in all seriousness, working on a project, Howard Jameson, my co-director, and myself, and I asked for some figures from David Wimble. David Wimble is the grand fromage, as you know, of Deluxe Radio, and hello to everyone listening on Deluxe Radio. And I always wondered at the back of my head, I'm going to be honest, when David said there's at least 70,000 people listening to this show just on Deluxe Radio, I thought, I hope so. I'd love to believe it. All the figures came through, all the stats. Oh, yeah. 70,000 plus. So, David, thank you for sending through. I know it was an absolute pain in the posterioso for you to get all those figures together. They're absolutely accurate. And so at least 70,000 people listening to The Daily Show just on Deluxe Radio all along the South Coast. And so hats off to David Wimble for doing it, and hats off for him sticking with his guns, because it's not been easy. None of these things are easy. It takes you just see the tip of the iceberg, or you see the swan gliding along elegantly. You don't see everything that goes on like that underneath to make sure that the shows and the stations run as well as we hope they could. So thank you, David, much appreciated. And it's exciting that we're resonating just by having an honest conversation, a grown-up conversation. Trying to keep it very real and honest, and not just coming on promoting propaganda from one side or the other. Do you think people should have the right to strike, Leslye?
Yeah, I do. I mean, when we worked at Capital Radio, I was outside that door on the corner of, by Euston Tower for 6 weeks with no strike pay. If you ask, you weren't there then? I don't think you.
No,
I don't know.
no. Must be pre-84.
Yes,
be pre-84.
Yes, it was. I can't remember why now. Okay, but it was a long time ago, and I'm an old woman. But yes, 6 weeks, no strike pay. I do remember Sir Richard, as he was then, coming to the door and me saying to him, "Excuse me, Sir Richard, I know you will understand me asking you not to cross the picket line, but I perfectly understand that you may have to. But I would like you to think about your career in the film industry as you cross it." And he was very charming. And of course, he went in. And as I say, I can't remember, but that was the time when the unions were all broken anyway. It was the time when...
Leslie's referring to Sir Richard Attenborough, who was the founder of Capital Radio. And in the early days, it was very difficult. And he sold some of his paintings and personal belongings to inject the money back into the station that he believed in. And it's a classic thing that when it was a family, if you like, it was magnificent. The moment it got sold to Global, the moment the only interest was in the shareholders and the share price, the heart, no pun intended, went straight out of it.
Yes.
Went straight out of it. I know that's the real world, but it wasn't the same, and it never will be again. And that's the bottom line with that. I hope everybody's found this interesting. The figures that I'm seeing coming across my screen look like you clearly were. And the fact that you think that, good God, this is David Wimble, and this is not a joke. I sold all my classic cars to put into radio waves. I saw David's presentation for radio waves the other week when I was with him. It was fantastic. He thought I was just cheering him up. It was absolutely brilliant, using a new software system that I'd never seen before. And radio waves is going to be great, and we're going to be hopefully a part of that, although we're not.
All the best, David.
David knows what I'm talking about now. So there we are. It's true. I've got one more question as we wind up. You've used this phrase, Leslye, several times, and I'm not joshing with you. Do you think of yourself? You keep saying, "I'm an old woman." Do you think of yourself as an old woman?
Sometimes, not really. There are certain things I think.
No, we'll never know. What happened?
No, we'll never know. There are certain things.
But she was never seen again.
Hopefully we can get her back. Do you want to do some bits? Do you have a guest on Wednesday? Do you want to do some bits on burnout?
I'd like to. I've got two. Possibly, we've only got one guest on Wednesday, which is really, really interesting. One for the ladies. It's an embarrassing. I'm not joking. It's a very, very embarrassing subject that women don't want to talk about. But 50% of our viewers and listeners are women. I upset her. I don't think I did.
And that subject
are women, and it's a subject you don't get on other radio stations, and you don't get on you certainly don't get on the BBC. Here we are. We've got a very, very Leslye. I know you're very busy, but you disappeared. We've got.
I know. I don't know where it went. It just switched off.
No, it was your roof. It was your roof that did it.
It was my age. No, I don't think of myself as being old unless it comes to thinking about what if something specific, which I'm not mentioning, happened now. No, I don't think of myself. I do it as a joke.
Oh, okay. But you kind of, but then Freud would say this, well, you'd know better than me, Neil, because you're much more of the expert. I'm just a happy punter.
I don't know much about Freud's work, to be honest with you.
And I think I'm wonderful. I think I'm amazing for my age.
No, I think you're just amazing. You're just a fantastic person. That's all there is to it. I should know. I've known you since 1984. So There we are. Isn't it funny? We're all at Capitol and we'll come back together again. But that's it. We're kind of out of time. A Wednesday's guest is very extraordinary. It's a woman discussing a subject that everyone avoids, and it's not to do with the water supplies. It's for ladies.
Is it
And
menopause?
she's the expert on leaking.
Oh,
Leaking. If you're
Oh.
free, Leslye, please join. I would love you to do that. I know we're pushing the boundaries because it's not been done, but you've got to talk about this.
Brilliant.
Great.
Brilliant.
That's it, gang. We'll be back Wednesday, 12 noon. Until then, as I always say, stay safe. Bye-bye.